In a recent speech at the Brookings Institution, U.S. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, who recently praised Denver for its support of school choice, called the choices in Denver an illusion. DeVos said the benefits of making choices accessible are canceled out when you don't have a full menu of options, referring to the lack of vouchers and more charter schools. In response, DPS Superintendent Tom Boasberg respectfully disagreed, stating that public dollars should be used for public schools. Penn, school choice, charter schools, all this is a big deal in Colorado. What do you make of what we've heard from the Education Secretary?
Well, first of all, remember this is the Education Secretary who was applauding historically black colleges and universities as an example of choice in higher education, seemingly ignorant of the fact that due to racism and Jim Crow laws, black high school graduates couldn't attend the state colleges and universities in their states. So they had to create an entirely separate set of institutions for black students only. Starting there. Bravo for Tom Boasberg and his comment. And frankly, what he said pretty much reflects the sentiment, I would argue, on a bipartisan basis in the state of Colorado. When I served, we saw a number of voucher bills. And it was interesting the coalition that would form, because a lot of rural legislators would say, we're not for this. Nobody wants to put a private school in our communities. Our kids aren't going to get any more choice. And why should state tax dollars go to fund a bunch of fancy schools in the suburbs of Denver or Colorado Springs? The other flaw that has always existed with a lot of this voucher legislation in Colorado is the parents don't get the choice, the schools pick the students. And if you're a family that can't afford to get your child to the school you want to go to, the private school, you're out of luck. And if the private school, because it has a particular religious affiliation, doesn't want to accept your child or your family, you're out of luck. And so choice is illusory in this conversation unless it matters whether the institution chooses versus the family and the student.
Nick, as Deputy Bureau Chief of Chalk Beat, Colorado, I imagine you might have a viewpoint or two on this one. The floor is yours.
Well, I don't have a viewpoint necessarily, but I do think to provide some context, I think it's important to understand when we're talking about choice, there are two broad camps. One camp says, let the free market, let parents decide what schools work best. And there is another camp, and that's Betsy DeVos's camp. And there's another camp that says, you have no choice without quality. And that's where Tom Boasberg and U.S. Senator Michael Bennet fall under, where they say the state has an obligation to ensure that charter schools are doing well by their kids. DPS's choice program is very popular within the city. Some 87% of kindergartners and sixth graders participated this last year. 73% of ninth graders participated. And overwhelmingly, most of the kids are getting into their first or second choice schools. One last note, there is a push from Denver charter school operators who want to expand quicker. They feel like DPS is not letting them expand quick enough. So that is a local tension that will be playing out over the next year.
Patty, while we made the national comments, we being Denver, in the national comments from Betsy DeVos, do you think there'll be any impact from her comments here in the Centennial State?
Yes, a lot of irritation, which we're already seeing. Amazing that the same day she's saying this at the Brookings Institution, we're just named #1 again for choice. You know, we've had the charter schools here for 25 years now. This is the anniversary of charter schools in Colorado. And for the most part, although there certainly are legal issues in different counties, it's been a big success. So in this case, I'm glad that Boasberg and Bennett have stood up for us, and I think others will continue to.
David, the Impens Institute has done a white paper or two on school choice and the entire education center as part of the Institute. Your thoughts on what we've heard from the Education Secretary?
Well, as the Brookings Institution rightfully praised Denver for solving one of the problems we talked about, which is transportation. And it has a innovative transportation program so that if you're participating in the existing choice programs within the city, like, you know, basically they have a voucher program for kindergarten, which is apparently working quite well, and they help with they provide the transportation for the families that need that assistance. So that's really outstanding. But as it's also say you have no choice without quality, and look at the quality of the education that a lot of kids are getting in traditional DPS schools as opposed to the DPS charter schools. And the test scores that are coming out of that, they're often not very good. And I don't think the DPS as a whole, if you look at their, how many people graduate from middle school or high school in being proficient in reading, not nearly enough. So there is a quality problem in DPS, and they should be more willing to allow the successful public choice alternatives like charter schools to continue to expand as rapidly as there are parents who want to go and families who want to go to them. Charter schools are public schools, and they absolutely have strong guarantees of quality assurance, more so than neighborhood schools, which almost never get shut down for bad performance. Badly performing charter schools do not get their charters renewed.